You're someone with a vision for your practice, for your side hustle, and for your personal journey. But when it comes to establishing your path on how to get to where you want to be with your practice, things get a little messy. You're also someone who'd prefer to go in person instead of to groups and listening to everyone else's story. To me, it sounds like you could benefit from one-on-one consulting with our experienced practice of the practice consultants. From $5.95 a month and up, you can work with a consultant that will give you more direction and practical tried and tested tips matched to you and your goals. For more information, visit practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1112. Welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast. We are going to be doing a series between now and the beginning of November, where we are going to be playing all of our Level Up Week trainings that we did in September of 2024. We're going to be talking about from empty to overflowing, talking about your branding, talking about multi-locations, shifting from 1099 to W-2, all sorts of different things during this series. And if you want help from one of our consultants for every single phase of practice, or if you're just not sure where you fit in our memberships versus our consulting, I would love for you to talk with me over at practiceofthepractice.com/apply. We can schedule a 30-minute call together and dig into all those different areas that you want to get started. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Now let's get started with the Level Up Week series. Welcome. So glad that you are here today. We are covering some awesome things today in Level Up Week. This is our second to last webinar that we're doing as a part of Level Up Week. We've had such a vibrant week, just awesome mixture of panelists. This morning talking with people that were just getting their solo practice into group practice. So getting that group practice going, had group practice owners, solo practice owners, people that have thriving, sustainable practices that they don't want to level up into a group practice, but they want to keep doing well. So just so many awesome things. We're talking today in this session all about unlocking growth. We're going to talk about 5 steps to boost your practice no matter where you're at. Also, ample time for us to take questions and talk through things, no matter your phase of practice. So if I haven't met you, hello, I'm Joe Sanok. I started Practice the Practice in 2012. Really because I was reading business books and listening to podcasts and learning about just the business of running a practice. And I had mental wellness counseling at the time. It's something that I sold in 2019. And I didn't know what I was doing at all. It was this side gig practice to pay off student loan debt, was starting to grow and grow and grow, was adding clinicians, and I didn't really know what I was doing. So I started podcasting about that journey, started doing income reports early on as to how and where I was making money. And then started hosting conferences, doing consulting, doing public speaking. I wrote a book. And so it's just been a fun journey to help people build thriving private practices they absolutely love. I have 2 daughters that are 10 and 13. I'm a single dad with primary custody of them. We have a riot. We just have so much fun. I also love doing improv. So every Tuesday, I'm now teaching for an hour and a half and then doing improv for 2 hours. So 3.5 hours of improv every Tuesday plus our shows. So it's just, I laugh harder than ever. It's just so fun. Well, we're going to talk about your phases. So first we got to talk about your foundation. So at the very beginning, we're talking about should I even start a practice? And some of the education you need is, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to start one? So just having those basic checklists, thinking through that foundation. As we're doing that, we're learning about licensing, business setup, initial marketing, importance of setting clear goals and a solid business plan. With a business plan, we want to think about, okay, over the next 3 to 6 months, what do I want to do? So even if you're already established, it's good to go through these things to think through, did I do it right? We want to get some resources around your own ongoing learning. So reading books on business, on different ways to think through your mission, vision, values. If you get stuck in any of those areas or have questions about books that we've found helpful, by all means, drop that in the chat. Or if there's books that you have personally found helpful, drop that in the chat as well. And then as we're looking at starting a practice, we want to identify those key areas to focus on for a really strong start. And then as we're getting started, we want to think about those first steps to launch and get your first clients. Some of the activation there is, holy cow, I have my first handful of clients. I'm really excited here. And so as we look at activation, then we want to have that initial client attraction and service delivery. So we want to be thinking about, how do I get those first people in the door? There's really two ways that people tend to find you. One is organic marketing. So that would be things like SEO, search engine optimization, posting on Facebook, writing blog posts, things like that, writing for your local paper, being on local radio, networking. And then there's people kind of giving their blessing to you. And that's where the networking comes in, where someone says, oh, I met Joe. He's great with teen boys. He's great with parents that are really frustrated, or couples that are feeling distant. Someone gives that blessing. That could be an insurance company because you're just on a list. It could be a doctor. It could be a pastor. It could be a yoga teacher. These people that then say, oh, I saw Joe. He was amazing for me and my family. You got to go see him and work with him. So then we want to start building efficient scheduling and billing systems to make it very clear how the billing goes, where people go. I shared earlier in the week that I had a new therapist. I saw me and Claire talking about, like, how do we connect more, and how do we, with me having kids and her not having kids, and like responsibilities and money and all these kinds of things that are important for a couple to talk through. It just felt like, let's just have a therapist kind of preventatively to help us with this. So they're Gottman certified, and so it's like, each of you go individually, and then you come together after you take the Gottman test and stuff. I mean, the onboarding was terrible. I didn't know where to. The EHR they used sent me to the wrong place where her old office was 3 years ago. Claire, when she went for her individual session, couldn't even figure out how to get into the building. Like, those are things that some clients would just give up, and you spend all this time marketing to get someone through the door, and then these things are kind of wonky. And there's some clients who would just be like, screw it. This is a sign that I shouldn't be going to therapy. And then we want to build that initial client relationship and gather feedback. What are you doing well? What could you improve on? Finding those specific areas that you can really get down very early on. Next, as we start to grow, we're going to look at delegation and expanding your team. So we want to have that kind of multiplication mindset. Like, I can't do all this. I need to add some people. And so what that means is non-clinical staff. So this can be, really, I'd say when you're at about 10 clients, that's a great time to start to bring on a very part-time virtual assistant. Someone that can answer phones, someone that can respond to emails, that you're paying basically per minute, not per hour or not per week, and that you're figuring out which systems you can take off your plate, because otherwise you're going to feel way out of control very quickly. And so what that looks like is hiring your first clinician. Oftentimes, unless you want to build a sustainable solo practice, just be solo. That there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, we have our new track within Next Level Practice called Sustainable Solo Practice, and that's specifically aimed at people that have a solo practice. They know they're not ready, or maybe will never be ready for a group practice, but they want to still rock it out. They want to raise their prices, expand their reach, maybe offer groups, find ways to increase their income outside of just doing a group practice. But for a lot of people, it's hiring your first clinician. And I would say when you're at 10, even to 15 clients, you're definitely in the space that you can hire your first clinician. I hired my first clinician when I was at 6 sessions, and I had a full-time job and was just 2 days a week doing evening sessions, 3 to 5 sessions a night. Knew that I didn't want that long term, but wanted that extra money, and then brought someone in that did the other 2 nights a week, and then brought someone in that did Fridays, and then had someone that did mostly lunches. And so it was a lot of part-time people that wanted to dip their toes into private practice. So keeping it really easy, keeping it low stress, building that team, and having it be that there's not a lot of risk, so that you're paying either a flat fee per session, flat fee or percentage. I prefer flat fee because I think that then clinicians are less thinking about the numbers all the time. They're just doing the clinical work, so they're less likely to leave. We want to do some effective delegation and creating those robust systems, so that people are in there, they're working, they're doing a good job, and then training new hires and really documenting that as you bring people in. In that process, we want to start to think about setting clear expectations that come from your KPIs, so your key performance indicators. So every year we at Practice the Practice do this, and I'd encourage you to. We're getting towards the end of 24 to think through, okay, if there were two, maybe three things that we did better next year, what would that be? And so if you're a solo practice and you're hiring your first person, you might say to by the end of next year, have two people that are each seeing 10 sessions a week. So you say, okay, two people. So then we're going to look at that KPI. It's very clear. The number's clear. We're going to break down quarter by quarter what projects need to happen. So first we've got some hiring. We've got maybe learning how to hire. We've got learning some marketing or hiring a marketing company. So then quarter by quarter, you see 3 to 5 projects that are supporting that KPI. They're saying, okay, how are we doing on this? What are we doing? Are we able to expand in a different way? It keeps you on track. It keeps the expectations on track. We want to look at different tools and techniques for effective delegation. So using things like Slack or Asana or Trello to be able to know where we're at in regards to different projects. And then the part that so many therapists miss. We just had this happen in an earlier meeting today where someone was talking about how they had hired someone and they weren't following a certain method. That sometimes we forget to really do good follow-up, whether that's with our virtual assistant, our non-clinical staff, or our clinical staff. Us as owners is where it starts with, what do we want out of this role? What am I paying you to do? So if you're joining my team and I own a small group practice, knowing what I want out of you. So, early on, I'm looking for someone that's going to be a part-time therapist, 5 to 10 hours. They understand that I'm new at this group practice thing and I'm trying my best, but I'm going to drop the ball. And I'll just say that right at the beginning. That I want to get feedback where we can, kind of create a better checklist over time for second, third, fourth, fifth hires. I want someone that is willing to, once a month write a blog post and once a month go out and do some networking. So knowing what we want out of that person then allows us to do some monitoring to say, okay, on the first Monday of the month, I'd like you to just send me an email explaining the networking you did. A link to the blog post that you did last month that was posted. How many sessions did you average per week? Whatever those things are, so that you or your executive assistant are bringing those together to have that dashboard of numbers. For you as an owner, even early on, we want it to be that you have the information you need to make decisions. Oftentimes people are gathering information that they aren't making decisions on. Here's our retention rate. Here's our client rate. Here's our, amount we get per session, per insurance, it's fine if you're going to make decisions on that data. But if you're not, it's just a waste of your team's time to bring that data together. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have the data we need to make decisions and changes in the business instead of just collecting data for data's sake. And that monitoring and adjustment helps us then stay on track. Next, we're moving into continuation, so sustaining growth. So we want to replicate things. How do I replicate myself and my clinical work? So for me, I was Gottman level 2. Couples came because I was one of the first people in Northern Michigan that had that level of training around couples work. And so I actually, with my supervision group, we went through the Gottman training to do 1 and 2, to do the tests, to work together in a supervision group setting where they were getting supervision hours, but they were also getting trained as a Gottman level therapist. So then, we had 8 people then that were Gottman level 1, and then 6 months later were Gottman level 2. And so I was replicating myself. And some of those people joined my practice, and when someone wanted to work with me, specifically with couples, and I was seeing fewer and fewer people and eventually sold the practice, there were still people that could help in that area. We want to be able to replace you in your niche area, in the time, in a number of different areas so that you can choose how much you want to be the owner, how much you want to be the operator, and how much you want to be the clinician. So those are 3 really distinct roles that you're going to have as a business owner. So you have the owner, the operator, and then the clinician. So each of those, you get to decide, how much clinical work do I want to do? Do I want to do 4 sessions a week? Do I want to do 35 sessions a week? So that side of the clinician. And if we want to do 4 sessions a week, how is that income going to be made up? How many extra sessions do we need other people doing based on your profit margins? As the operator, as the CEO, as the visionary, we want to put on that CEO hat and say, I'm managing a team. If you were to hire out, a full-time CEO, they might be 80 to $100,000 for a small practice like what you have. Um, what are you doing to embody that, to learn that? And maybe you don't want to be the fully manager of it. That's okay, but we then need to figure out who's going to do those things. And then there's the owner side. The owner is the one that's taking the risk. It's the one that is getting owner draws, whether or not they're working as the operator or as a clinician. They're still making profit off the business. So you want to think through all that and growing and building outside of your time. And so as we have that continuation phase, we want to sustain that growth. So we want to ensure that consistent quality and client satisfaction. So do we have regular quality assurance going on? Do we have auditing of files? Do we have red flags within your EHR? If someone doesn't have their notes in on time? In some way, is your billing department dinged, or is somebody dinged if insurances get rejected? And then we want to continuously improve. So the lean manufacturing model, which was developed mostly in the automotive world, is why we have really great cars that came out of Asia. Honda, Toyota. For a long time, those were the leading cars that would last on the road so long. Their manufacturing processes were then replicated, where they did this thing called plan, do, check, adjust. And there's a lot more that goes into it, such as just-in-time services, and we're not having a bunch of kind of extra bulk and keeping it all lean. But that idea of we're going to plan, we're going to do, we're going to check, we're going to adjust, that should be embedded in your quality improvement and updating of your system. So even as we go through Level Up Week, there's things that have happened where, I'll send a Slack message to Jen and I'll say, hey, add this to the list for next time. I think it's going to make us more efficient next time. Just making sure, like I noticed that some of our panelists didn't have great light on their faces, and it didn't look as good as it could have. Just a simple reminder of making sure that you have a lamp on your face will just make them have better video and stand out as a quality speaker. And so just having those kind of things for our next round that we're doing this just makes our quality go up and makes our guests and our panelists look even better. So we want to find ways we also track that performance and having metrics and client outcomes. And then we want to look at what are the strategies for long-term sustainability. And so one thing that often happens is the owner is doing so much work to keep this thing going. And it's because they know if I don't do it, I'm not going to make enough money to take back to my family. But when you look at how much they're actually making per hour, it is so low because they don't have the systems to actually have this be long-term sustainability. We want to be able to look at you in those different areas of saying, okay, you're a clinician and you're getting paid $60,000 a year for your clinical work. You're the CEO and you're working, 2 hours a week, but at $100 an hour. So $200 a week. So, we've got, a couple $1,000s that are coming in, per year for you, or $10,000 or so that would be for that. So $10,000 now at 60,000, so we're at 70,000. Then as the owner, your owner draw is 50K. So you get 120K, but here's how we break that down. So then if we ever want to step back, we can say for me, I'm going to stop doing the clinical work, but we need to have someone else do that. That's not going to be money in my pocket anymore. So I need to then look at what that looks like. And so making sure that we have those numbers for long-term sustainability, where it's not you just working so hard that you keep the thing going. Next, we want to have celebration. We want to be recognizing success. This is an area that so often owners miss. We take this football field goal and we keep changing, kind of how it is. So, before we said we want to be a $100,000 business. We hit that and we're like, okay, we want to be $500,000. So we change the goalposts. So it's harder for you to say, no, look, let's pause for a second. We want to celebrate milestones and achievements. So have people been there for a certain period of time? Do they get some extra training? How do we celebrate that? How do we tell the team about that? We want to reflect on growth and planning for the future. And so how do we set new goals that we're working towards together as a team? We want to make sure that we're rewarding your team and recognizing them in ways that matter. Small things like, if they're ill, that we send them flowers or something, and large things like, do they have a substantial anniversary coming up, either in the business or in their life? We want to know what motivates them. And so, maybe one person, they want work flexibility so that they can go on 3-week trips once or twice a year. And maybe somebody else, they really care about retirement. They got to catch up on their retirement. So they're willing to work 49 or 50 weeks a year, but, they want to catch up on their retirement. understanding those things with your team of what motivates them can then help with the people and the projects to be able to move forward faster because you know what motivates them other than just their paycheck. Also, we want to keep that culture of celebration and appreciation. To me, it's so important to recognize that you have staff that are on loan to you. In one way, shape, or form, they will leave you, either through your death, through their retirement, through them moving jobs, through them changing job roles, through them realizing I want to work less. In some way, they're going to all leave you. If we just start with that, you should appreciate the fact that their family, their friends, their energy, that they're being loaned to you for a period of time that you get to work with them. Now, I'm sure every person you work with, you're like, thank goodness I get to work with this person. But to just think about it through that lens, you don't own them. Just because you're paying them doesn't mean that you can be all high and mighty and have this ego and all those things. You can have clear expectations. You can have, clear outcomes that you're looking for. You can have hard conversations in a kind, compassionate, and clear way. But just that mindset of these people are on loan to me to help me with my vision for my business. That kind of shifts the dynamic to say, I really appreciate that you're here. You're doing an amazing job. So like even looking at Jen and Sarah who have been helping out with so much of Level Up Week behind the scenes. I want to actually we're gonna pause right now. I'm gonna stop the screen share. I'm gonna have them come on video, and I'm gonna live what I'm talking about right now. So if Sarah and Jen could turn your video on and your audio on. I'm not sure if Jen step back and work on other things. I see Jen's here, but she might be fielding something else. She's been multitasking like a badass. So, there she is. All right.
Hi.
So, the reason that I have slides every single time that are flowing well, that I have the Zoom links, that you come in here, and this has been as flawless of a Level Up Week as we've ever had, is because of these two and the team that stands behind them. So, if we could all just react in some way to them, they have done an amazing job with Level Up Week, and it's just so incredible to have them on the team. So, even, and I'm not doing this just as like this just came to me. Like I genuinely feel this. I genuinely feel like I get to work with these two ladies and with the rest of the team. And, having that flexibility is so important when it comes to recognizing your team, having them want to work there. When we have medical things that come up, I know both of you maybe aren't super comfortable staying on video. You're welcome to turn it back off if you'd like. Thanks for all your support and all you've done. But to have people say, I've never worked at a place like this. Like, that's what I want practice of the practice to be. Figuring out for yourself, what does that mean for you in regards to, hey, like, what kind of business do I want here? And we want to share success stories and lessons learned. So when there's things that happen in celebrations or someone sticks their neck out, we have a guy, Josh, who works on our team. He had an idea probably 3 months ago to do different kind of research on our podcast guests. He started looking at followers. He started looking at what kind of, I don't even know all that he's doing, but like the last 20 guests I've interviewed, I've been like, how the hell am I interviewing this person? Like, they are these heavy hitters that are USA Today bestsellers and top fill in the blank, whatever they're in. He's doing something right. And, to share that success story, to send him an appreciative message, like when you have a vision within a business that's not yours and then you enact it and then the owner doesn't say anything and it's making the business better, that gets defeating. And so we want to make sure that we're trying to keep our pulse on the business, even as we grow, maybe outside of being able to know every single thing that's going on. Whatever stage your practice is at, we know using great resources with patients is crucial to helping them get better faster. As a practice owner, I never compromised on this, but finding the right materials was a constant challenge. It's so time consuming, especially with everything else to juggle. That's why I recommend Psychology Tools, an online library of over 500 evidence-based resources for whatever problems your clients are facing. Choose practical exercises, handouts, and worksheets, audio therapy, treatment manuals, and loads more. They're even available in multiple languages and formats. Developed by highly qualified psychologists, resources can be downloaded with therapist guidance to enhance skills or client guidance helping patients make the most of each tool. It's a game changer for saving time when delivering more effective therapy. As well as a great resource library, Psychology Tools is also a smart business tool, boosting productivity and efficiency. Focus on growing your practice while your team feels better prepared for every session. It's a win-win for you and for me and for the client. Visit psychologytools.com/Joe to find out more. Use code JOE24 for 20% off new subscriptions. Again, that's psychologytools.com/Joe to find out more. So if we look at this, this in regards to the timeline of growth from solo to being a group boss, we have that solo phase in the upper right here. Really what we're looking at is we're looking at time management. We're looking at attracting clients and avoiding burnout. That's the main thing you want to be doing when you're in solo practice. And this is true when you're first getting going. This is true when you have a sustainable solo practice, because that time management, if you don't show up, you don't get paid when you have a solo practice. And that's, if you decide that's what you want a sustainable solo practice, awesome. We just still need to have good time management. And so even, when I had my solo practice, granted I was working full time, had little ones at home. I've said this before. For me, it was, I had sessions on the 45 minutes and then gave myself a 15-minute bathroom in progress note break in the middle. And so I would leave my full-time job and get to the office at 4:30. I did a 4:30, a 5:15, a 6 o'clock, took a break from 6 to 6:15, and then went from 6:15 to 7, and then maybe we would do another one or wrap up progress notes at a time. Now, could I do that now as a 45-year-old? My energy levels have shifted a little bit from my early 30s. But the point is being smart with our time. If you were to look at my calendar for a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, my core days that I'm working, I know what I'm doing every single minute of that time, when I'm going to eat, including when I'm going to run to the bathroom. I put things in there knowing how I can get the most out of my time. So time management in that solo phase is so, so important. Not that it's not at other times, but that's one of the core things. Attracting clients, getting known for things, having a good website, having people really start to know you in that community. That phase, that's what we're talking about. And then avoiding burnout, making sure we don't get into habits during that phase that are going to make it that we can't get as far as we want to go in private practice. Then the launch phase, this is the group practice launch phase. When we're starting a group practice, when we're moving from solo into launch, we want to first really look at hiring the right people. We want the right people in the right seats. And so we want someone who's the head of your customer service or your intake coordinator. They should be someone that you want to talk to. They should be the kind of person that, wow, they make me feel so good coming into a counseling practice. We want to look at hiring the right first hires in regards to your clinical staff. So thinking about, okay, here's my niche. What calls are we getting that we can't serve? Okay. So I help couples, but I don't tend to help people post-divorce. We're getting a lot of calls for that. To me, the lifetime of a relationship is really important. So I'm going to find someone that's really good with transitions and divorce and changes and affairs and all the things that go into that. That's something that I'm personally not going to work on, but I really need to find someone. Or it could be hiring the right people for the right time. Maybe you get a bunch of calls for, I need to see, my kid needs to see someone, but they really can't miss school for counseling. Okay, we're going to hire some people that maybe we could have go into the schools, or maybe we're going to hire someone that always works after 3:30. Maybe they have a partner that has a different schedule and that works better for them. Or maybe they want to work on the weekends. At this phase, we really want to work on our systems as well. The systems to scale at that point are so important. We don't want to hodgepodge things together where just in a couple of years, you're going to have to undo everything and redo it. We want to find the right EHR. We want to find the right way that we're billing insurances. We want to find the right way to do our payroll, all these different things. And we have, sponsors and affiliate relationships with folks that have amazing services in all these different areas. And then we want to manage our growth. More times than not, people hire their second or third person too late. The rule of thumb that we use is that when your practice is 60% full, that's when you need to be hiring for your next person. You can do it before that. That person just might grow a little bit slower. But the reason we say 60%, this is true of when you're going from solo to group or when you're group, 60% is, you think about the timeline. You think through, okay, are we going to hire another person in this niche because we're attracting those people, or are we going to do a different niche, or we do different times? That's going to take some conversations. You got about a week there of saying, what are we doing here? Then you're going to post it for probably 2 weeks or so, get some applications, go through them, look at them. Then you're going to do interviews for usually a week or two. So now you're at 5 weeks right there. Say you make an offer there at 5 weeks, and then maybe that person wants to put in 4 to 6 weeks notice, depending on what their job is. They may have a lot of clients they need to transition out. You're looking at, anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks from the time you say I got to hire. So by the time you make that offer in 5 weeks, your 60% is probably going to at least be 70% full. And then by the time that person comes in, the team will probably be at 80 or 90% full. And so we want to make sure that we hire early enough on to really manage that growth. And next, we want to look into that boss phase. So after you've launched, we want that group practice boss phase where you're delegating effectively. And so what it takes to get there is often a lot of bootstrapping. Maybe you're doing a lot of the bookkeeping, you're doing a lot of the billing, you're doing a lot of the marketing, you're checking on the website. You can do all these different things. But there's a time when it's like, okay, it's time to delegate and to really do what you do best and outsource the rest. When you do that, then you can be focusing on what's the big thing that really helps grow this business instead of just the thing that saves me $50 an hour. Now, $50 is $50, but sometimes when we're just like, well, I have an extra hour, I might as well update the website. What you're doing is you're not allowing yourself to slow down enough to think about that big picture idea that might bring in $1,000 an hour instead of saving yourself $50 by doing that website update. We want to maintain that quality. So that's where that plan, do, check, adjust comes in, where we know, okay, what's happening here is we have this new KPI, this new key performance indicator. Here's how it's going to look. Say we're launching a group around trauma. We have an EMDR-based practice. We've noticed that we're getting more EMDR clients than we know what to do with. So we're going to do a new model where once a month, someone comes in for EMDR one-on-one. And then 2 times a month they come in for group, and we're going to charge X number of dollars for this individual plus group model. So we need to start looking at how do we maintain the quality of that? How do we maintain the communication for that? How do we price that competitively? And for a new program like that, we want to probably have it be about 50% full, which is at least our break-even point before we ever go public with it. So internal clients would be a good fit. We get, say we need to have a minimum of 4 people in this model to make it financially worth it for all that's going to go into it. So maybe we look for 4 clients that would switch from coming every week or every other week to come into this mixed model. So we're maintaining that quality. Then how do we maintain that quality? How do we have surveys throughout to make sure that the things that we're doing are the things that our staff are doing are the things that we think that they're doing? And then we want to look strategically at the next phase. So what's next for the practice? Are we going to just keep hiring? Are we going to have multiple locations? Are we going to level up in a different way where we start to go more national, where we're writing books, we're starting a podcast, we're doing e-courses? Are we taking this model and doing a certification program? There's so many different things that you can do as you do that audience building to be strategic for that next level. One rule of thumb I say is keep the plates spinning that you already have spinning that are bringing in the money. So if counseling's bringing in the money, keep the counseling going before you start a podcast. Make sure you have those systems down. Make sure that's optimized and you have pulled yourself time-wise out as much as possible. And then if you want to do an e-course and then you want to do a podcast, then you want to start a new group therapy thing, do that spaghetti at the wall after you make sure that the things that are bringing in the money are all done and have been able to be just optimized to the best of your ability. All right, so timeline of growth from solo to group, and then boss. So we want to identify those common challenges and potential opportunities that we have. We're overcoming those struggles and leveraging those opportunities. The main struggles and opportunities in each phase is in that solo phase, that time management, attracting clients, avoiding burnout, launch phase, hiring the right people, creating the right systems, managing growth, and the boss phase, delegating effectively, maintaining quality, and strategic planning. Okay, so some things that can help in each of these phases. During your solo phase, that growth mindset of thinking about how can I keep things moving forward when things hit the fan, just keep in that. Don't go in that victim mindset. Work on that resilience. Focus on your own learning. Do those things that keep you centered, whether that's meditation or running or improv. Do those things that keep you centered. As you move into the launch phase, maintain all those things. But now we need to look a little more at leadership, at being adaptable, and having strategic thinking. And there could be podcasts you need to listen to, books you need to read. I love the mastermind program that's out there, or masterclass. That's just so awesome for all the different teachings that are there. And then when you move into that boss phase, you're really moving into being the visionary, empowering others, long-term planning, pulling yourself back. Nicole was just talking about how in her third location, she only probably shows up there once a month and pops in. Ash was saying the same sort of thing. In different locations, things are running so well that they pretty much run themselves. And that's where we want to be. So key tasks to focus on each phase. In the solo phase, we're looking at marketing, client acquisition, personal development. The launch phase, we're looking at hiring, system creation, team training. In boss phase, we're looking at delegation, scaling, operations, and continuous improvement. And having specific tasks in each of them that are going to help us grow. So a couple time management strategies we want to think about is prioritizing your tasks and setting boundaries. We want to get you pulled out of the day-to-day operations, and we want to really start to move that into your executive assistant in different tools. Rory Vaden has this thing called the procrastinate on purpose. And it starts with first, is the task important? If it's not, either eliminate it or procrastinate. Next, can you delegate it, automate it, or it's delegate, automate, or eliminate? And then after that, is it important for where your KPI is? And if not, you can procrastinate on purpose. So making sure that we're not just working to work. All things on a to-do list are not the same value. There's things that have much different value on my to-do list than other things. We want to ensure that work-life balance and avoid that burnout. Making sure we're scheduling and planning things in our calendar to know exactly what to do, not just with counseling, but all the other things. And delegate and outsource as much as we can. Okay, recap of the 5 steps. We're doing education, activation, delegation, continuation, and celebration. So education is building your foundation. Activation is getting started. Delegation, expanding your team. Continuation, sustained growth. And celebration, recognizing success. Doesn't spell anything fancy, but maybe someday we'll make it spell something fancier. So let's put it all together. Integrating those 5 steps into your practice, you want to be in this cycle. Let me go back to that, where you're going into new things. So you're constantly being educated in that new area. We're not going in 20 different directions, but maybe we start with solo practice, activate it, start to delegate out, continue it, and then celebrate. Now we're going to educate on going into group practice, and we're going to activate that hiring. We're going to start delegating out some of that HR. We're going to continue what's going on, and then we're going to celebrate. Then we're going to educate ourselves on running a larger group practice. So it's this cycle that we just keep going through as we continue to level up. I am going to show you the staff wage calculator before we jump into questions, just so you can see how it works. It's so awesome. This is something I built with for my consulting clients, and it's just a great tool. So you're just going to enter in your different things. So say you're 125 per session, how many weeks a year we're doing, say 48 weeks a year. Average reimbursement rate 125. Total sessions the person does per week. So say they do 25 a week, and then they do 48 weeks a year. That's going to then give us our gross totals. So then if we have our hourly, say it's 25 an hour, they work 20 hours a week, and they work 48 weeks a year. And then say you have supervision for these people, so 2 hours a week, one for each person. Their hourly would be, say they're 100 an hour for supervision. They work 2 hours a week for 48 weeks. That gives us our total for the year. And then the owner time, we want to, like I said, separate this out. So, say, a CEO would be about $100 an hour. Hours worked per week, we say about 5, and then say 48. So then this starts to give us our totals and change some of it. And so we can put in here our annual marketing budget. Say it's $5,000. If we have insurance, maybe it takes 6%. So that's how much you pay for that. Say for rent per year, you're say $12,000. IT, let's say we're at $2,000. Maybe you don't offer health insurance. Miscellaneous, say we do another like $10,000. All right, so what this does is it then starts to show us what the net profit is and what your net profit is per clinician. Now, we haven't paid them anything. So say we're paying them hourly. Say we want to give them 65 an hour. Well, then that's going to give them 78 grand a year. Now we may say, okay, well, what if I toggled that? Or what if I want to do a percentage-based model? You just do this. So salary percentage, that's 52%. Maybe you're like, okay, no, they don't deserve that. They should get 40%. Okay, well, what's that do to my bottom line? So it brings this all together for you in a way that just you can play with numbers and say, okay, if I were to say increase my average reimbursement rate to $45, how much more do I make? Right now it's 65 grand a year. Holy cow, I almost double my income just by raising that rate by 20 bucks a session. And so there's all these different ways that we can do it where we say, okay, if I paid them, how much am I going to lose per year if I paid them 65 an hour? So I'm at 110 now. Okay, well, I'm going to lose a chunk, but they're probably going to stay longer. So if I wanted to make up that chunk, if I just said, hey, let's do an extra $10 an hour, is that going to get me closer to that 110? Well, we're getting closer. So now we can start to see and make better decisions as business owners. All right. I see we got some questions coming in. Feel free to virtually raise your hand. I always love talking back and forth with you as well. Let's start at the top here. What should be the agreement for no-shows? So I am a big believer that you could have filled that with anybody else and that you should charge your full rate for that. And life happens. So do I want a sick, snotty kid or someone with COVID to come in because they don't want to pay the session fee? No. So you might say, you get one late cancellation. You need to let me know. I would say for most people, if anyone's a no-show, no call, you should always charge them. That's just disrespectful. Like that's your time that you sat there. And to me, it's like you should get your full fee for that. Now, I would say a couple of the things are situational. If someone gets in a car accident, if someone's got a sick kid, having one or two of those a year is reasonable. More than that, there's a pattern there that we need to address. I would say we want to pay our clinicians their full fee for that time as well, because they're counting on that. Do they get compensated? And what is a good model to have part-time W-2s? What are good practices? Great question. So for W-2s, I think that moving away from the percentage model is what we're seeing a ton of our successful practices doing in one-on-one consulting right now. I think we have probably 30 or 40 different practices that we help with through our consulting. If you have a flat fee that's around 40% of what's collected, that's a good fee, because then, if you're charging more, you have a better profit margin. If you're charging less, that gives you some wiggle room. You then have extra money for bonuses. And those people aren't like looking at, oh my gosh, that's 40%, that's 40%. So I would start with probably somewhere around $55 to $65 per session. And it's just going to be, here's what you get paid when you're doing that clinical hour, and then have a different rate for non-clinical. So for staff meetings, networking, things like that, usually 25 an hour is reasonable around that. But you want probably no more than 15% of their time to be that non-clinical hour, unless you have someone that you want to actually hire on as like your marketing person. So if you have extra questions on that one, feel free to either raise your hand or put them in there. Let's see, you are on the verge of burn. Let's say you're on the verge of burnout. What's the 10 move to get unburned out? I would say first I would look at what part of the burnout is affecting you. Because sometimes we say, my job's burning me out. Is it your job? Or do you have 3 clients that really piss you off? Whenever they're on your calendar, you're just like, I don't want to see these people. Is it certain clients? Is it certain aspects of your business? So I would evaluate that. I do think that most people don't really value slowing down. So to look at the coming weekend and say, if I were to say take Friday afternoon off and do no work until Monday morning, what would happen to my business? Is your business that fragile that it's going to fall apart? You need some help then, for sure. Most people's businesses won't completely fall apart in that time. I do think having just some of that slowdown time to reflect, I think what's going to bubble up is, okay, there's probably 2, maybe 3 things that really need some attention that are stressing me out. It could be your health. It could be your relationship with your partner. It could be your kids. It could be your work. To really think through what's going on here and then say, are there solutions? What would happen if we spent an extra $25 per grocery visit to have groceries delivered to us instead of going and doing our own grocery shopping, just to free up an hour, hour and a half of time? Like, are there things like that we could do as a short-term test to see if it helps you? If you're at too many clients, then we need to start raising rates. And if you feel you can't raise your rates, then raise your hand and we'll talk about how. Erica, I'm going to come over to you and would love to hear your question.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome. You've come to a lot of these. Thanks for
I
coming so much.
know.
I love it. And you almost always have your video on. It's so great. You and my Winnipeg therapist, who I'm sure has a first name, always have your video on and are asking bunches of questions. I love it.
Yes. So I consider myself solo practice for a couple of years, but I'm using Headway for
Okay.
as like the billing and things like that. And I'm looking to, of course, launch to group. So I guess my question is like I've never done billing outside of Headway.
Mhm.
You guys cover that, or like how does that look
Yeah,
into
so a
launching
lot of
to?
our conversations are around like logistical things like that. So we have, for example, what's working every single month, and we have other Q&As where people come together. We also have your small groups where, if you are in next level practice, you'd probably be in your small group once or twice a month and say, hey, I'm on Headway. I'm thinking about growing into a group practice. What do you guys think? One of my best friends who's a therapist that paid to go through group practice launch uses Headway, and I believe, and you might want to look into this, this is just from one clinician's standpoint, that they just added groups as an option within Headway. So I would look into that to make sure, because there are people like, Chris Strobin is his name. He may be in a group with you and say, no, I think Headway does do it. Here's how I just added my first clinician in there. That just saved you hundreds of hours, not hundreds, a handful of hours of time searching around, dinking around, being like, oh, I thought I had to leave Headway. So, yeah, so we cover all those kind of logistical things as they come up. And it's always changing too. Like AI has become a huge topic within our communities of how do we ethically use that? How should we use it? Is Google dinging you if you write blog posts that way? In 6 months, there may be other things that pop up, which is what makes it a dynamic community where the things that you have presenting we then can respond to. So like Jen and Sarah are constantly hearing from small groups, here's what's going on. And then when we're looking at Ask the Experts, we're selecting those people based on what we're hearing. So for example, if Headway has added groups, we may want to just invite someone from Headway to come in and do some presentation on like, how does that look? So we have that ability to have that agility within the groups as well. Awesome. All right. I saw a couple other questions. Sarah put a link to those memberships in there. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/memberships. Um, so Daniela said too many clients when it comes to burnout. So here's how I think about too many clients. I was at that point where I had a waiting list. And I remember my business consultant brother and I were out for a drink. I think it was my grandma's funeral. It wasn't a happy event. We were there all together for a reason. This was a long time ago. And I kind of bragged to him, like, because, he's in business consulting, like, hey, I'm so busy. I have a wait list. And he's like, that's dumb. And I thought he was going to be like, way to go, Joe. You launched a business and you know nothing about business. And no, it was, of course, like a brother, like, you're dumb. And as we talked, he said, well, why wouldn't you take, I don't know, I think I was at like 10 or so clients outside of my 40-hour a week job. Why wouldn't you take an 11th client? I'm like, I'm just burned out, man. Like I can't do it. I don't want to be at the office till 10. And he goes, well, what are you charging? I think I was charging 125 or something. And he said, so you're telling me for an 11th client, if someone paid you $1,000 for 45 minutes, that you wouldn't stay an extra 45 minutes for that? And I was like, well, guess when you put it that way, I probably would. And he's like, well, what about 500? I'm like, yeah, that's a lot. That's a chunk of change, especially with 125. He's like, okay, then we have a pricing problem, not a time problem. And so when we are seeing too many clients to make ends meet, one thing we want to really evaluate is what are our rates? So first, if we're on insurances, are we on insurances that are really hard to work with, are really crappy? Very few people have them. They pay the lowest amount in the area. It might be worth unpaneling from those insurances. If we've optimized the insurance, we've got a good private pay amount. When we're at that about 60% full, we want to jump our rate by about $25 to $30 a session. And it's similar to why we would hire at 60% because, as people come in, that's going to start to fill up. So if you're really full already and say you're at 150 a session, I would say jump to 195 a session, jump to 225. That's the perfect time to make a gigantic jump because you're already feeling like you're too full. So what's going to happen is as you have people that start to say yes to working with you for 225, 250, 295, whatever number to you is like, I can't believe I'm getting that. Then you're going to start to look at the rest of your caseload and say, does this person really need to see me every single week? I have all these people that want to work with me for $295 a session. Now, there's some ethical things around that too to think about. Well, Are there things that like I am then excluding certain populations from being able to do this? So you can partner with places that are nonprofits that maybe you do a sliding fee scale with. Maybe you work with Open Path Collective to have some pro bono or reduced cost things. You can still have your ethics go in there. If you have 10 people a week paying $300 a session, then it's a little different to say, I'm going to give away 5 sessions. I'm going to, volunteer in certain communities I care about. I'm going to do whatever. It just opens that up differently. What you do then on an annual basis. So, and I'll walk right through this. And Daniela, I knew you were going to ask this because it's always the next question. So throughout the year, you're making these jumps. So say you were 125 at the beginning of the beginning of 2024. You're 60% full in March. You jump to 150. By midsummer, maybe you have a slump, and then maybe the fall it's picking back up again. You're full again. You're at 175, 185 or so. So we're at the end of the year. We're in November. That's when we want to contact all of our current clients and say to them in writing, via email, policies, however you communicate with your clients. Right now, new clients are coming in at 185 per session. I've leveled up a number of my clinical skills. I've done these trainings. There's a cost of services that has increased and a demand for my time. So right now, new clients are paying 185 per session. Right now, you're paying 125. And this is where in that letter, you have to make your own decision. Do you bring everyone up to align to that 185? Some people don't even ethically feel good about having two sets of prices for people. So deciding for yourself, do I move that 125 all the way to 185? Or do I say as a legacy client, I'm going to bring you up to 175 on January 1st. Now, this may affect your ability to come to counseling. And I didn't go into counseling just to make money and have a career, but because I actually like helping people. So if this affects your ability to come to counseling, please let's have a conversation about that. Most people never bring it up. They may say, you know what, I'm going to switch to every other week. This is a good push for me to reduce the amount of counseling, to save a little bit of money. But boy, I love working with you. But can we work together twice a month instead of, every single week? So it then kind of pushes that conversation to say, why are we still doing counseling? And then that next year, now you're at 175 for new people. As you get full, maybe you're at 225, 250, 275. The next year, November, you send that letter again. Also part of that letter I didn't say is we also say, I know that your insurance for the next year is coming up. So make sure that you look at your flexible spending and your health savings account. Lastly, with any out of network people, I would highly recommend you work with Mentaya. Mentaya is an awesome platform that will do out of network billing for you for free. And I think charges the client 3% or 5% of what's collected. So it's a really great way for if you're private pay for people to get some reimbursement from that too. And they're often doing their full fee. All right. So I would say how much advanced warning? Usually 2 months advanced warning is more than enough. I recommend that getting in the habit of annually doing that when the new year starts, and sending that letter in early November so people have 8 weeks or so to get their kind of finances in order. That's also when a lot of people are deciding how much money, if they have a job that does flexible spending plan or health savings account, to put that money into that. All right. Mentaya. We'll have Sarah will grab that. It's just practiceofthepractice.com/Mentaya. Actually, I'll just do it right here because maybe she may have to look that up. So they do some sort of, hold on, let me type first. Yeah, there we are. All right, practiceofthepractice.com/Mentaya. They are a sponsor, but we have vetted them, interviewed them. We've brought them in. They are experts on out-of-network billing. And it came out of the owner who started it. Her sister needed a ton of therapy with a specialist that was out of network, and there was no easy way to do it. And so she left her work at Google and started this company. And so it's really awesome. So Sarah, you beat me to it. Awesome. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. I will talk to you soon. And I see your name's Kevin. So welcome, Kevin. All right. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Level Up Week series. I hope you are getting so much help out of this. If you need extra help, head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/apply. I would love to spend 30 minutes brainstorming with you as to your phase of practice and helping you determine whether a membership community or consulting is right for you. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. And we couldn't do this show without our amazing sponsors. I wish I had a better online library of evidence-based resources to use in my practice, and Psychology Tools is the place to get that. Psychology Tools is a smart business tool also that helps you with productivity and efficiency while giving your clinicians and yourself better quality materials to give your clients. You can get 20% off new subscriptions over at psychologytools.com/Joe and use code JOE24 to get 20% off of any new subscription. Thank you for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music. And this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.